The laugh echoed even after I closed the ballroom doors behind me. That awful mix of fake amusement and real cruelty. It wasn't just her kiss that cut, it was the way she said it. Like I'd been a warm-up act for the real show. My real partner now. Everyone chuckled like it was edgy, provocative, maybe even deserved. They all saw the kiss. Nobody saw the 15 years I spent lifting her career on my back. Late nights alone. Early mornings packed lunches. The way I sat front row at every miserable office awards dinner, clapping like a fool while she basked in applause written in my time and sweat. And now, apparently, I was just the guy holding her purse until she could grab a better one. The valet barely looked me in the eye as he brought the car around. I don't blame him. I probably looked like a man who just found out his dog died and his house burned down at the same time. But I wasn't shattered. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry yet. That came later. Right then, I was cold. Deadly cold. I drove home in silence, parked in the garage, walked inside, and went straight to the den. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. The safe was exactly where I left it. Combination hadn't changed. Not since I'd said it 10 years ago, the night after she came home, late from the strategy offsite, smelling like department store cologne and telling me I was getting paranoid. Inside the safe, under the old passports and the envelope with our will, was the red folder, labeled in my handwriting. If she ever does it. I had made it as a joke back then. Or at least, that's what I told myself. A backup plan. A fantasy folder. I didn't expect I'd ever need it. But I did. And I wasn't even surprised. Inside were names. One of them, Karen Morales, stood out. She was the kind of woman Michelle never thought twice about. Sweet. Quiet. Liked her yoga and her wine and her garden. Michelle used to joke that Karen still cooked for her husband like it's the 1950s. But here's the thing. Karen was also the wife of Randall, Michelle's boss. The man she had just kissed like she was declaring war. So I called her. At 1:03 a.m. She answered on the second ring. I didn't need to explain much. Just gave her the time stamp and the footage ID. The party had been recorded, after all. Multiple angles. Professional audio. Company policy, of course. For promotional purposes. Lucky me. I'll watch it, Karen said. Calm. Too calm. And if it's what you say, I think you and I should talk again. Soon. Then she hung up. And just like that, everything changed. If you're still listening at this point, let me say this. Over 90% of people hear stories like this and don't subscribe. But if you're one of the few who does, thank you. It helps our small team keep going. Because stories like this, they don't write themselves. And the next parts, they get darker. Back in the den, I didn't sleep. Not because I was spiraling. I was planning. The kind of planning you do when you realize the rules never protected you, and you're done playing by them. I opened 3 browser tabs. Legal contacts. The firm Michelle once laughed at for being run by dinosaurs. Old school contract sharks. My kind of people. By 3:17 a.m., I'd already sent 4 emails. Karen had just replied with a short message. Got it. He's still asleep. Not for long. By 3:23, I had Michelle's calendar open on my backup account. She never changed the password. Same one she used for everything since college. Her childhood dog's name and her lucky number. She once said, if someone ever hacks me, they'll just get a bunch of grocery lists. Sure, Michelle. Or maybe, they'll get your full email history with your boss. The one where you signed off last month with, if only I could call you mine in public. Oh, don't worry. That line gets important later. For now, I just forwarded that one to myself. Labeled it for compliance. And I waited. She didn't come home that night. She never saw the look on my face. Completely calm, entirely done. She never noticed I didn't even take my shoes off when I came in. Because that night, I wasn't home to relax. I was home to detonate. Michelle called me 23 times between 6:01 and 7:12 a.m. She left 7 voicemails, each more pathetic than the last, starting with breathless panic. Can we please just talk? Moving into defensive deflection, you're blowing this out of proportion. Then finally descending into manipulative baiting. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're being cruel right now. Cruel? No, sweetheart. Cruel would have been forwarding the security footage to her parents instead of his wife. But I chose Karen. And Karen chose silence. Until 6 a.m. on the dot, when she placed a single, perfectly timed call. Not to Randall. To Michelle. Michelle didn't recognize the number. She answered with that sugary voice she saves for clients and caterers. The calm that came next froze her mid-word. Your husband just sent me something, Karen said. And your affair wasn't even the worst part. Wish you knew which side of the table you're on tomorrow. Click. That was it. No shouting. No profanity. Just precision. I can only imagine Michelle sitting there in our guest bedroom at her boss's lake house, tangled in 800 thread count sheets she didn't pay for, holding a phone like it had just delivered her death certificate. And in a way, it had. Karen wasn't some idle housewife flipping through cookbooks. She'd been married to Randall for 19 years. They met in law school. She had once passed the bar herself, gave up the courtroom to raise 2 kids, while Randall climbed the ladder. What Michelle never understood, never wanted to understand, is that women like Karen aren't weak. They're dormant. And the thing about dormant volcanoes? They don't erupt often. But when they do, cities burn. Michelle didn't know about their prenup. Of course she didn't. She was too busy batting her eyes and rehearsing accidental hand brushes in meetings. But Randall and Karen's agreement wasn't just a formality. It was ironclad, and it had teeth. Buried in the clause list was a small but potent line. In the event of reputational harm or conduct unbecoming of a spouse in a public or professional setting, the offending party waives rights to jointly held assets and is subject to accelerated separation terms. Michelle thought she was clever by going public at the party. Big gesture, bold move. But the moment she raised that champagne glass and purred, "This is my real partner now," she didn't just embarrass me. She signed Randall's financial death warrant. And thanks to the footage I had, and the metadata embedded in it, Karen now had proof. Visual, verbal, time-stamped, witnessed by over 200 people, shot from 3 camera angles, and recorded by the firm's own media team. Not just proof of the kiss, proof of the announcement. The moment Michelle thought she was winning, she triggered 2 legal nightmares with one toast. I poured myself a coffee and watched the sunrise from the porch. She still hadn't come home. I knew where she was. Randall's second property, a pretentious little lake retreat he pretended to host strategy sessions at. She once told me it was perfect for recharging. Ironic, considering that's where her battery just died. At 8:13, I received a message from Karen. Just one sentence. Prenup and asset inventory forwarded to your legal. Along with it came 3 attachments. The first was their prenup in full. Every clause highlighted, signed, notarized. The second was a spreadsheet outlining jointly held real estate, brokerage accounts, and shared trust disbursements. The numbers were larger than I expected. The third? A photo. Michelle and Randall at the party, mid-kiss, taken by the firm's own event photographer. A week ago, Michelle posted that picture to her private Instagram. Caption, "Let the next chapter begin." I sent that screenshot to Karen, too. Her reply was swift. Public declaration. Timestamped. Excellent. By 10:04, Michelle had left 2 more voicemails. One tearful, one laced with threats. Both deleted. I wasn't interested in her version of things. Not anymore. Instead, I got to work. I began compiling my own submission packet. I already had our shared asset breakdown. But Michelle didn't realize that I'd quietly updated our own post-nuptial agreement last year. She signed it. Happily, in fact. Something about simplifying estate planning. She didn't notice the amendment I slipped in. Morality clause. Triggered by public conduct. Defined by third-party corroboration. Initialed in ink. The same ink she used to sign our anniversary card that year. To my always. I opened it again, just for fun. Then I slid the card into the new folder, right behind the morality clause. Let the next chapter begin, Michelle. Michelle's laughter wasn't the carefree kind. It was the smug, sharp-edged laugh of someone who thinks they just pulled off the perfect trick. She was glowing that night, not from love, but from spectacle. The kind of glow you get when you've convinced yourself that humiliating someone in public is empowerment. I had to watch the footage multiple times. Not because I was hurting. That part had already hardened into something colder. But because I needed the right moments. I wasn't compiling a highlight reel. I was constructing an indictment. She walked up to him like it was choreographed. Grabbed his tie. Not playful, but possessive. Her body language screamed ownership. She whispered something I couldn't catch, but the mic on the champagne tower did. Don't pretend you didn't like that little show. Then she turned to the room, raised her glass, and said it loud enough for the entire floor to hear. To new beginnings, with someone who finally gets me. Applause. A few fake gasps. Laughter. Her voice rang through the speakers like she was giving an award speech. I cataloged every frame. Pulled the raw feed from the AV team. Luckily, I'd worked freelance for the same company last year, upgrading their cloud infrastructure. They owed me a favor. 10 minutes later, I had access to every camera angle. Lobby, bar, ballroom, even the photo booth. I watched Michelle and Randall get cozy in front of a fake snowy backdrop, her sitting on his lap, Santa hat askew, holding up a sign that read, "Naughty List, permanently." I saved that too. By 11:35 a.m., I had compiled a video package. Crisp, unedited, cut into sections, each with a timestamp, camera number, and audio match. I wrote a short email to HR, professional, dry, attached the video and an accompanying document outlining potential breaches of conduct per their own employee handbook. I didn't add emotion. I didn't need to. I CC'd compliance. And just for good measure, I BCC'd 2 members of the board. People who wouldn't ignore this. People who had once told me, off the record, that Randall was starting to overestimate his charisma. Then I sat back. Michelle kept calling. I silenced the ringer. At 1:03 p.m., she sent a long message, half apology, half justification. We didn't plan it, it just happened. You've been distant. I didn't know how to reach you anymore. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled down to her next line. It's just one night. Nothing serious. Funny, that's not what she said in her toast. Or in the video where she kissed him twice and said, "We've waited long enough." That afternoon, Karen sent me a one-word update. Received. 10 minutes later, she followed up with a screenshot. She had sent the same footage directly to her husband's internal review committee, with a subject line that read, "Conduct breach, immediate review required." Randall's day was about to get interesting. But Michelle's? Michelle's was unraveling in slow motion. At 3:47 p.m., she sent another message, this one clipped and defensive. "You're trying to ruin me. Don't think I won't fight back. You're not some victim here." Ah, there it was. The shift from guilt to panic. She realized the game wasn't private anymore. It wasn't about hurt feelings. It wasn't about marriage. It was about policy, corporate governance, shareholder expectations, code of ethics. Michelle never understood the world she worked in. She thought it was about charm and clever retorts, about looking good in heels and throwing in just enough buzzwords to sound indispensable. But HR? HR is not charmed. Compliance? Compliance doesn't flirt back. And the board? The board doesn't clap for champagne toasts celebrating affairs with their VP. By 6:22 p.m., she stopped messaging. I assume that's when she got a call. Probably not from me. Probably not even from Karen. My guess? It came from an assistant. Cool, detached, reading a script. You're being reviewed. Please refrain from discussing the matter with other employees until the process is complete. That's when reality set in. Not heartbreak. Structure. Process. Consequence. Michelle thought she was just having a little fun at the company holiday party. What she didn't realize, that party was fully sponsored by her employer. That speech was caught on 5 separate company-owned cameras. That kiss, logged, stored, and backed up in 2 separate data centers. And that smug little laugh? It's now Exhibit A. The receptionist at Lang and Hurst greeted me with a confused smile. Understandably, I didn't look like their usual client. No Rolex, no driver waiting outside, no loud suit screaming, man in crisis. Just jeans, a jacket, and a USB drive in my pocket that weighed more than anything I'd carried in years. The place smelled like mahogany and consequence. Not a flashy firm, not one you find through Google Ads. They had a single listing in the old legal directory Michelle used to scoff at, flipping past it in favor of boutique firms with glass walls and minimalist logos. Lang and Hurst are dinosaurs, she once said. Old men who still think NDAs matter. Exactly. The man I met, Mr. Barrett, looked like he hadn't changed his tie since the Reagan administration. But when I slid the drive across the table, he plugged it in without a word. His fingers didn't hesitate on the keyboard. He opened the file named compliance_trigger_1223 and watched the footage like he was reading the end of a book he already knew by heart. At the end of the second clip, the one where Michelle cooed, "We've waited long enough," while running her hand across Randall's chest, he simply asked, "What outcome are you looking for?" "Not court," I said. "Just accountability. Quiet. Final." He nodded. "We do better work in silence." The first step was assessing the field. While Michelle panicked and spammed my voicemail, I let Barrett's team map out everything she never thought I noticed. The equity holdings in her name, the trust accounts tied to our real estate, the silent partners Randall had helped her loop into via backchannel referrals, deals disguised as favors, commissions disguised as consulting fees. Every dollar that flowed to her since 2019, Barrett found it, categorized it, linked it to Randall's signature in 3 separate places. Meanwhile, Karen sent over the prenup. Scanned, notarized, and annotated with sticky notes. She didn't need to highlight anything, but she did anyway. Section 14 was a masterpiece of legal brutality. In the event of public conduct unbecoming of a marital partner in connection with a shared professional enterprise, The party in breach shall forfeit all joint claims to marital assets, current and future, including but not limited to dividends, pensions, real estate, and contractual obligations, regardless of origin. Karen's note beside that clause was only 3 words. He signed. She watched. That little detail was the kill switch. Michelle didn't just accidentally fall into Randall's arms. She did it under chandeliers at a corporate event, broadcasted to clients, vendors, board members, and every VP jockeying for Randall's job. It wasn't adultery. It was professional misconduct, and worse, it was public. I had Barrett schedule a private session, not with a judge, but with the board's compliance committee. Randall's behavior wasn't just a betrayal of his wife. It was a breach of his fiduciary responsibilities. And Michelle? She was the convenient vector for it. The new beginning, in heels and a glitter dress, now permanently preserved in the company archives. I didn't push for anything in writing. Didn't file a claim. I let the evidence speak. The footage, the email trails, the bonuses quietly approved under Randall's name. But I did make one request, a meeting, not litigation. A table, 6 chairs, carefully selected. Barrett would be there. So would the chair of the ethics committee. Karen, of course. And me. Michelle wouldn't get a seat. Not yet. Because this wasn't about a marriage. It was about leverage. In our last argument, months before the party, Michelle said something that finally made sense in hindsight. You never fight for things. You just sit and wait. It's like you enjoy watching people fall. I do. Because people who climb dirty ladders forget what happens when someone pulls out the bottom rung. By the end of that week, Barrett's team had prepared a portfolio for executive redirection, a polite term for what was coming. Randall would be asked to step down quietly. Michelle's consulting contracts would be reviewed, severance reclassified, tax records re-examined. I didn't need to bury them. They'd do it themselves, once they realized how deeply I had traced the wires. I called Barrett that evening just to confirm the next steps. His voice didn't waver. We won't need court, he said. We just need the right table. I smiled. Good. Because I already set the chairs. The 14th floor wasn't usually used. In fact, most employees in the building probably didn't even know it existed. It was one of those quiet executive levels, private elevator access, soundproof boardroom, no glass walls. You don't go there unless someone invites you or escorts you. And if someone escorts you, you're not going up for applause. At 8:02 a.m. Monday morning, Randall walked into the lobby, still grinning like he owned the place. Custom coat, perfect teeth, and that smug posture of a man who thinks consequences are for the people in the cubicles. He scanned his badge. Security didn't unlock the usual turnstile. Instead, a uniformed man tapped him on the shoulder and said, "They're asking for you upstairs." Upstairs, meaning the floor where careers either quietly resign or violently implode. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. That was the beauty of it. Randall walked in smiling. He left 38 minutes later, gray as ash, holding a sealed folder and staring at the ground like it had betrayed him. Inside that folder, the full compliance log, every clip, every statement, every witness name, the security video from the ballroom, split into sections, the audio transcript of Michelle's toast, the HR email showing she had submitted Randall's signature for a bonus approval 3 days prior. Cross-reference that with the timestamp of the kiss. You had yourself a narrative, bribery, nepotism, and public impropriety wrapped in sequins and champagne. Michelle didn't hear about the meeting until later that night. She was home by then, back in our shared house like nothing had happened, trying to act as if we'd had a minor spat over dinner reservations. Like we were still in the part of this where angry texts could undo decisions made in full daylight. She was pacing the kitchen, barefoot, phone in hand, typing furiously. "He's not answering," she said. "Since this morning. Not even read receipts. What the hell is going on?" I was sitting at the dining room table, calmly finishing a report for work. Didn't even look up. "Because," I said, "he just saw the full compliance log. With you in it." She froze. Slowly set the phone down like it might burn her. What compliance log?" Now I looked at her, coldly, like I was reading her for the first time. The one with every video, every timestamp, every policy clause he violated, every ethics code you helped him break. The one the board has now. She blinked. "You sent that?" "No," I said. "The system did. It was already in the archive. I just told them where to look." Her legs buckled a little, and she half sat, half slumped onto the bar stool. All the color drained from her face. That was the moment she understood this wasn't about us. It wasn't about betrayal or feelings or marriage. It was about money, about control, About shareholders who don't give a damn who you love, but care deeply about whether your misconduct could tank quarterly earnings. Michelle's boss, her so-called real partner now, was under internal audit. Not because he was in love, but because he was sloppy. Because he failed to disclose his entanglements. Because the kiss wasn't just salacious, it was reportable. And the moment he didn't self-report, the board had every reason to question everything else he'd touched. Michelle stared at the tile floor like it might offer some magical excuse. Then she looked up. Are you seriously trying to destroy both of us? I tilted my head. Destroy you? No, that was never my job. I'm just pointing the camera in the right direction. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her phone lit up. Another message she wouldn't be replying to. At that same moment, Randall was being advised by his in-house counsel not to speak to anyone, not even her, until the committee reviewed the entirety of the report. Michelle still thought this was going to be fixed with an apology, maybe some HR coaching, a little PR rehab. She hadn't realized she'd become a liability, a walking breach of protocol, a glitch in the matrix that couldn't be left unchecked, not because she kissed the wrong man, but because she did it under a banner that read Annual Corporate Summit. The board didn't care about morality, but they cared deeply about image. And Michelle had just given them a reason to tighten their leash on every mid-level exec with a wandering eye and too many LinkedIn endorsements. She wasn't his muse anymore. She was a warning, and the unraveling had only just begun. Michelle always started her Tuesdays the same way, latte in hand, sunglasses on, her phone still open to whatever quote she planned to shoehorn into her morning meeting. Disruption is the engine of innovation, or some nonsense she'd swipe from a tech influencer. She liked walking into the building like she owned it, heels clicking just fast enough to look important, not fast enough to seem rushed. She smiled at reception, waved at security, the performative humility of a woman who thought charm was a shield. But that Tuesday morning, the building didn't smile back. Her badge didn't beep. She tried again. Still red. The security guard, Brian, I think, looked down at his screen, then up at her like he'd been told what to do, and told not to explain it. I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore, he said. You've been temporarily removed from the access list. She blinked, stunned, holding the badge like it might work if she just believed in it harder. I'm a project director here, she snapped. He nodded once. Not agreeing. Not disagreeing. Please check with reception. Reception didn't meet her eyes. They just handed her a sealed envelope. No warm greeting. No offer to call upstairs. Just an envelope. She opened it right there in the lobby, hands shaking slightly, latte forgotten on the counter. Inside, one printed sentence. Pending investigation, you are to remain off-site. Legal will be in contact. No signature. No logo. No letterhead. Just protocol. Because when the system decides you're a liability, it doesn't scream. It whispers you into non-existence. Michelle didn't cry. Not there. But witnesses said she stood in the lobby for nearly 5 minutes. Just standing. Like her brain couldn't compute what her eyes were reading. She tried to call Randall. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Blocked. She dialed me. Also blocked. But I had sent something that morning, to her lawyer. A plain manila envelope. No dramatic gestures. Just facts. Inside, a printed packet titled Whitmore, Conduct and Contract Review. It included transcripts from the holiday party, security footage timestamps, her on-camera toast, verbatim, her own Instagram post of the kiss, and one final page, an addendum to our post-nuptial agreement. She had signed it last April. During tax season, we were updating our estate planning, streamlining some insurance paperwork, consolidating accounts. She hadn't read a word. She just flipped to the signature page, mumbled, God, this stuff is so boring, and signed. Initialed every page, including the new clause. It was buried in the middle. Simple language, brutally effective. In the event of public conduct resulting in reputational damage or violation of corporate ethical guidelines, spousal entitlements shall be suspended pending review by third-party counsel. No need to prove intent, just conduct and corroboration. Two things I had in abundance. Michelle's lawyer, one of those toothy boutique guys with too many rings and too much hair gel, called me within an hour. He tried the usual tactics. This seems a bit excessive. Surely there's a more discreet. No, I interrupted. There isn't. He paused. Are you saying you planned this? I let that hang for a second. I'm saying I documented it. And your client agreed to the terms. Click. Michelle, meanwhile, was walking to the parking garage. No access badge meant no parking validation. Full charge. $63. The small humiliations add up quickly when you lose institutional cover. By 2 p.m., she had tried emailing HR. No response. She pinged 3 colleagues. 2 didn't reply. 1 sent her a vague, "Legal says I can't comment." Even her calendar disappeared. She was officially uninvited from her own day. Later that evening, I saw her name trending, just locally, on an internal company forum. Not the gossip kind, the compliance kind. Someone had anonymized the event footage and was using it as a case study in an ethics module. How not to conduct yourself at a sponsored corporate event. Michelle's silhouette was blurred, but her voice? Not altered. "Let the next chapter begin," she'd said in the video, mid-toast. Well, it had. Thursday arrived gray and cold, perfect weather for dissection. The conference room on the 14th floor had been stripped of its usual luxury. No catered lunch. No fruit bowl centerpiece. Just water, not even chilled, and 6 chairs spaced with surgical intent. 5 were already filled when I walked in. To my left sat my attorney, Marin, who had the polite smile of someone who'd memorized the entire employment code just to make her enemies look stupid. Next to her, the man in the gray suit, silent, expressionless. No name tag, no notes, just the kind of stillness that made even seasoned executives clear their throats. Across the table sat the board's legal counsel, sharp, direct, and already flipping through documents like this was item 17 of an endless list. Beside him, the head of compliance, a woman I'd met once at a charity auction who now looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. And finally, Karen, Randall's wife, calm, impeccably dressed, and utterly unreadable. The 6th chair? Empty. Deliberately so. Michelle wasn't invited. But she was watching, from the other side of the glass wall, a silent observer in a soundproof bubble, standing beside the assistant who had been ordered to keep her outside. Her face flickered between rage and disbelief, as if someone had dared to mute her in her own story. Randall was there too, seated 2 chairs down from Karen. His posture was slumped, hands clasped, jaw tight. The tan was gone. He looked like someone who'd just been handed his own obituary and told to read it out loud. No one said hello. No one made small talk. The board's lawyer opened with a monotone. "This is a closed session to determine disciplinary action and contractual implications stemming from the December 16th incident." They didn't call it an affair. Not once. That would be too human. This was about breach, liability, exposure. 3 words that don't care who you love, only what it costs. He flipped to a page and slid it across to Randall. Clause 7.4, he said. Failure to report interpersonal conflict of interest within a company-sponsored event. Combined with discretionary bonus approvals dated December 12th and 13th, this creates an actionable compliance breach. Randall didn't speak. Karen did. 2 transfers. Both to Michelle. Both within 72 hours of the event. Both without disclosure. She wasn't reading. She didn't need to. I leaned back, finally speaking. "I'm not here to press charges," I said, folding my hands on the table. "I'm just here to clarify what Michelle already gave up." The room stilled. I continued. "She signed a post-nuptial agreement. Last year. Included a clause on public conduct. It's triggered. Her entitlement is paused. Our assets are frozen pending third-party review." She waived arbitration. Karen followed. And Randall's forfeiture clause, Section 14 of our prenup, is also triggered. He's no longer entitled to shared holdings beyond the Q1 allocations. Silence. No one looked at Randall. He was somewhere between a statue and a corpse, still breathing, but in that shallow, useless way people do when their future is collapsing in paragraphs they once skimmed. The gray-suited man finally spoke. Just 4 words. "Board recommendations are binding." He didn't say whose recommendations. He didn't need to. From the hallway, Michelle stepped forward, hands on the glass. Watching. No one turned to her. That was the most devastating part. Not the policy language. Not the missing chair. But the total absence of acknowledgement. Like she'd already been erased, filed away in an archive marked, "Do not reinstate." After the meeting adjourned, no one shook hands. Randall remained seated. Karen stood, adjusted her coat, and walked out without a word. My lawyer nodded at me once, then followed. The man in the gray suit disappeared as silently as he arrived. I waited. Michelle was still there, behind the glass. I walked up slowly. She tried to speak, but sound doesn't pass through bulletproof corporate walls. So I mouthed something instead. "You did this." "Not me." Then I left her staring at the reflection of her own career, smeared across a pane of glass no one was going to open again. Michelle used to brag that she was one of the youngest execs in the building. She dropped that line at dinner parties, cocktail hours, even to the poor Instacart driver who once dared ask if she worked in HR. "No," she said, with that practiced smirk. "I signed their checks." She loved that persona, the sharp woman in control, rising fast, cutting through red tape like it owed her an apology. Except none of it was true. She was a senior coordinator with a made-up title slapped on a business card Randall printed himself. Strategic liaison to development expansion, or whatever fluff he'd conjured to keep her in his orbit without triggering HR alarms. It worked until someone actually looked. After Thursday's roundtable, HR began combing through files. Quietly. Precisely. Because when you make headlines internally, the company does a thing called status normalization. They audit everything: titles, pay, promotions, even in used vacation hours. Michelle had been listed as director level, acting on internal org charts, but not officially approved. Which meant no equity vesting, no golden parachute clause, no severance rights beyond base policy. She wasn't an executive. She was just sleeping with one. Randall, for all his power, had used backdoor approvals to sneak her into discretionary bonus pools. That was another violation. Improper allocations under Code 3.11. Unjust enrichment via unreported personal affiliation. Now he was under ethics review. And she had nothing. The woman who thought she was bulletproof was discovering she didn't even have a vest. By noon, her access to the internal benefits portal was gone. Her 401k was frozen pending investigation. Even her company email bounced. The HR assistant, who once ordered her oat milk lattes, was now under legal instruction not to engage. Michelle found out via a text from a junior colleague. "Hey, your email's not working. Did you change depths?" She didn't respond, because at that moment, she was sitting in her car, in the company garage she technically wasn't allowed to use anymore, staring at the engine like it might explain what had just happened. By 3:17 p.m., her lawyer called me. He cleared his throat twice before speaking. Sounded less like a fighter, more like someone trying not to step on a landmine. "I've reviewed the documents your firm sent," he said. "Given the circumstances, would you be open to a private settlement? Something quieter, to avoid escalation." I was in my garage, changing the air filter in my Civic. "Put the wrench down. Wipe my hands." "I didn't escalate anything," I said. "She did. I'm just watching gravity." He was quiet for a second too long. Then, "Right. Well, we'll be in touch." He hung up. I looked at the folder again. Not the one from my attorney, mine. The one I'd kept in the safe. I'd written "if she ever does it" on the cover years ago, but by now it might as well have read Michelle's exit strategy, shredded. Inside were copies of emails she'd forwarded from Randall, proof of influence, of decisions made without protocol, of her calling herself a silent partner in meetings she wasn't invited to. She used to joke about having benefits without paperwork. She thought that made her clever. What it actually made her was invisible, because when the paperwork doesn't exist, neither do your rights. By 6:12 p.m., Randall's office issued a no-comment press advisory. Michelle wasn't even mentioned. Not by name. Not even by role. She didn't exist on paper. She was a ghost, haunting an empire that never had her name on the deed. And the man she thought would fight for her was fighting to keep his own head above water. When I saw her later, standing outside our house, looking like a stranger, I didn't open the door. I just watched her from the window, arms crossed, phone clutched, waiting for someone to answer. No one did. Because you don't get to burn every bridge and expect Uber service back to shore. You swim, or you sink. Friday began with the kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from the breath everyone takes right before the punch lands. At exactly 9 a.m., the company's official press release went live on their investor relations page. Plain black font on a white background. No logos, no signatures, just corporate anesthesia. Effective immediately, two parties are no longer affiliated with the firm due to violations of internal ethics policy and breaches of executive conduct standards. No names, but everyone knew. Within 20 minutes, Slack threads across departments lit up like Christmas trees. "Did you see it? It's about them, right? Was that from the holiday party? Holy hell, it actually happened." They didn't need to say who. The entire firm had watched Michelle toast her own downfall in real time, under chandeliers and cheap applause, with champagne in one hand and Randall's tie in the other. The damage wasn't private. It wasn't even personal. It was a spectacle, and now it was a liability the company had quietly amputated. I didn't post anything, didn't gloat, didn't leak a thing. I just sat at the kitchen table, eating eggs and scrolling through the press release on my phone, watching the digital obituary of a career unfold sentence by sentence. The elegance of its vagueness made it even more brutal, because without names, the message was worse than public shaming. It was erasure. Michelle texted me at 9:31 a.m. No preamble, no warm-up. You've ruined me. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Not out of hesitation, just consideration. Then I typed back one sentence. You did that in front of 200 people? I just opened the door. Read receipt hit immediately. No typing dots. Just silence. But I wasn't done. I opened the folder one last time. Pulled the screenshot I'd saved, taken at 9:46 p.m. the night of the party. Michelle, center stage, laughing into the mic. Hand on Randall's chest, champagne lifted. Her words were visible in the live caption feed in the corner of the screen. This is my real partner now. I cropped it. Added a simple header. Statement of intent, time-stamped conduct evidence. Then I attached the image, embedded in a PDF, and sent it directly to her personal email. CC'd her attorney. BCC'd mine. I added a single line in the body. Archived, shared, and sent to every lawyer that matters. No legal threat. No demand. Just a record. Because once something is public, it's no longer a private mistake. It's evidence. And when the whole room saw it, when HR archived it, when the board reviewed it, it became more than embarrassment. It became her legacy. Michelle had always thought she could ride chaos like a surfboard. That spectacle was strategy. That charm was armor. But the truth is, companies don't fire people for mistakes. They fire them for being uncontainable. And Michelle, in front of 200 witnesses, proved she couldn't be contained. She went viral in the worst way possible, within the tight, hushed circles where career doors are quietly locked forever, where NDAs are negotiated over steak dinners, where reputations aren't destroyed publicly, they're simply not mentioned again. By noon, her LinkedIn said, open to work. By 3 p.m., that line was gone. By 5:22 p.m., she was off the company alumni network. Her profile page on the corporate directory returned a 404 error. And by sundown, she was sitting alone in the house she no longer had legal rights to, clutching a phone no one would call back, and replaying that moment in her head over and over again. The toast, the kiss, the laughter, the camera flash, and the sound of 100 forks pausing, just long enough to mark the moment she chose theater over sense. She used to say she was building a brand. She did, just not the one she wanted. The message came in just after 7 p.m., a single line of text followed by a photo attachment. Karen's name glowed on my phone, her words direct and surgical. The table flipped. I sat where he used to. He sat where I told him to. I opened the image. A wide shot of the executive boardroom, the same one where the compliance hearing had taken place. But this time, the seating arrangement was unmistakably different. No Michelle. No spare chair waiting like a pardon. At the head of the table sat the chairwoman. Regal. I sighed. Beside her, the name placard read, M. Whitmore, Advisor, External Ethics Oversight. My seat. Me. Across from her, buried at the far end like a banished relic, sat Randall. His nameplate still bore his title, but the red dot sticker beside it marked him as non-voting attendee. He looked drained. Smaller somehow. The alpha wolf reduced to whimpering compliance dog, nodding silently while others made decisions. No smile. No tan. Just a 1,000-yard stare and a stack of papers in front of him he likely didn't understand half of. And next to me, on the other side, was the man in the gray suit. Now identified. Interim Chief Ethics Officer. Appointed 48 hours after my packet was submitted. Turns out, he wasn't just taking notes at the hearing. He was taking names. I zoomed in on the photo. Karen sat confidently 2 chairs down, one hand on a tablet, the other holding a pen. Calm. Composed. But I knew the quiet fury behind that stillness. She wasn't there to debate. She was there to replace. Michelle saw the image later that night. I didn't send it. Someone else did. Word gets around in corporate corridors. Quiet whispers. Screenshots traded in back channels. Screens shared by mistake. I wasn't there when she opened it, but I know her well enough to picture it. The photo loading. The names sinking in. Her name, absent. Her face, nowhere. And me, seated beside the chairwoman, calm, silent, elevated. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try to shout through the front door like she had days earlier. She just stared, I assume, at the final proof that this wasn't a storm passing over. It was a demolition, and the building was already gone. What she once called a silly holiday party had become the autopsy of her entire professional life. And the saddest part? It could have been avoided. She always believed power came from speaking louder, moving faster, taking more. She never realized real power doesn't announce itself. It waits. It documents. And when the time is right, it rearranges the table and lets you watch. Michelle didn't lose everything because she cheated. She lost everything because she did it publicly, arrogantly, and under the false belief that the rules didn't apply to people like her. But the rules always apply. You just don't feel them until they close like a vice. That night, as I poured myself a drink and stared at the same photo for the 5th time, I felt no triumph, no elation, just quiet confirmation. She had laughed. She had kissed. She had toasted to new beginnings. And what she gave me in that moment wasn't pain. It was permission to open the folder, to make the call, to set the table. She thought it was her rising. She didn't know it was a confession, signed, time-stamped, and filed. Forever.